Lolita Vasquez. Lolita Vasquez. Did I say that right?
Yes.
I was laughing because I'm like, I don't know if I ever really said your last name before.
Yeah.
Okay, so Fresh Talks Global Vision. My name is Rhonda Liebig, and I have been doing this and playing with all this stuff around mindset, around connecting your heart, showing up the way that you want to, big and bold. Our biggest thing right now is about stopping the blaming and shaming out there. So a lot of the people that I am interviewing, it's about how can we really start speaking our voice, get out there bigger. Because when we get out there bigger, there's something different that happens in our world. There was a time when I was not really into speaking through my heart. And even if I really cared about somebody, I wouldn't say, oh, I love you, or I respect you and appreciate you. And I don't know if many people really say I love you anyway, but that is my biggest thing is I want to be around people that I feel like I want to say I love you. And they go, yeah, I love you back. Why I invite Lolita into this conversation is we've been having these conversations where we've been talking about like our spiritual journey, how that connects with the bigger picture of everything. And I think you're going to find this really interesting. If those are two things that you find that you are trying to express more and share with people, because sometimes you learn that in the background area and all of a sudden you have to come to truth with everybody like, oh, yes, I'm spiritual. Yes, I have a bigger picture. And I want this to be for you also. Welcome in, Lolita.
Hi, thanks for having me. By the way, I love you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Lolita. I know Lolita and I started saying we love each other a while ago. And you know why we did? Is because you know when you're with people and you start recognizing what Lolita and I have known each other for a while, but it's just like we both like to have fun. And so that was our attraction together at first, like, oh my gosh, you know, you're doing this, whatever. But then it came to that you start finding that you're in alignment with people, and that's usually people you're having fun with. So she told me she loved me. I love that. Lolita, what I find really interesting about what you're doing is that you are piecemealing, and it's really coming together, but piecemealing this thing of, I have this going on, I have that going on. And if you're on the outside, you're really beginning to build something here. So it can look like you're all over the place, but you actually have a bigger picture of everything.
Yeah.
Can you share with me what your big why is, or your big picture, what you're doing? You can go in as deep as you want with that.
Well, yeah.
That question.
Well, first, before I go into my bigger why, I always have been a little bit all over the place, right? My interests and my skill sets have always lied different places where it doesn't really feel like it connects at all. Like, oh, you like this, oh, but you are into this as well. How does that connect, right? So you're right about that. It always seems like it's all around, right? But my bigger why, I mean, okay, so my bigger why is to help women specifically level up with the way they are inside, the way they are on the outside, the way their specific skill sets, they're getting their certain, let's say, their whys up to their next level as well. Or achieving that and developing that into their bigger why, and then their bigger why, and then their bigger why. No.
And I think with that type of skill that you're talking about is that you're able to hold that space for somebody and really actually see somebody for who they are.
Yeah.
So that they can get to that next spot of whatever they're not really showing up for.
Right. Well, I mean, it's always, I think it's just, including for myself, for anybody, it's like, you know, like, yeah, you see, having somebody look at you and talk to you and see you and be honest about your career. So you're here, but you want to be here, and you're saying you're here, but you're not quite there. You know, you have to have like that person to be that honest with you. Maybe listen.
Yeah.
I think that's a great goal. I think that's a great dream. What are you doing to get there?
Yeah.
And then if the plan's not there, you know, that, I mean, you know, even just talking about it and just being real with yourself is always the first step.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To getting to where you want to actually be.
Yeah. So I hear that. So you're working with people, helping them level up. What type of industries? Because you're kind of all in different spaces that are really coming together. But what is that?
Yeah. So I'm a photographer. I'm also a project manager of the web space. So building websites. I also do pageants. It's a photography led me to pageants because pageant girls were coming in for their headshots. Mm-hmm. The way I got into pageants and pageantry and actually coming in and competing on my own as well and finding that passion and the why as to why I do pageants as well.
Yeah.
Came from that, and it came from the place of I need to do my homework, right?
Right.
Understand what they're looking for their product for photography, and I ended up really liking it. And then from there, my bigger why became bettering myself. I'm a generally very quiet person. I don't generally say anything unless I need to, and forming cohesive thoughts and putting them out there too. That was something I needed to work on. And in pageantry, that's a huge thing. Interview, talking to judges, talking to people in your community for your community initiative, right? That was a huge thing that I did learn. And also, I'm a huge tomboy, right? And in pageantry, learning how to walk in heels, learning how to dress a little bit more feminine, learning how to dress in an interview in general, and or makeup, or just like the hair is, it was a very big learning curve, but I'm better for it, right? And now I'm in the space to where I feel like some of my natural and or inherited gifts from my previous lives as like a band director or whatever now is all together here, helping other pageant girls and or women finding their voice, finding, just leveling up, like I said before.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm rambling, but there's so much to it. So I can talk about it all day.
Yeah, no, this is good. I wanted to back up. Well, first I heard your band days. So how does being a band director or conductor, whatever, that you did, how does that help with what you're doing now? Because what I keep hearing is that you've always been involved.
I've always been a teacher.
A teacher. And what I also am seeing is that you're involved in like 3 things you just talked about, but you know how that all really comes together. That's what you've been practicing all those years. You've always had different interests, but somehow all those interests are coming to like a big head of what you're really trying to do. And it's around up-leveling and supporting women, which is lovely.
Well, 2 things on that, right? Like I said, I was a high school band director for 6 years. Straight out of college, I went to University of the Pacific, got my music. Go Tigers! Hail Pacific, hail! And I taught for 6 years. Decided I wasn't making enough money in California as a teacher to California, and I went into the tech world. And I just kept finding myself using the same skill set of people management, teaching higher thought or complex thought, and leading people, in organization types. Became a project manager, the same stuff. I became a drum corps director, same stuff. I became president of LaTip. I became a business owner. Same thing over and over again. And now I'm a director, state director for pageant, same thing. And I'm also involved in Miss Sacramento County on their board, same thing. So I'm finding that it's the skill set that I'm using over and over and over again, but to also and finding higher purpose in it over the years, right? And you're right, like all these things are coming together. I've been doing a lot of spiritual work in the last few months as well. And
I love that you're talking about that. Okay. So we're going in here, spiritual stuff, very aware, because this is where I remember it was probably not our last lunch, but the lunch before, where we started really talking about this alignment and the overwhelming feeling you were getting because you saw there was a bigger picture and what your role was in that. So can you talk about is it the Akashic Records? And things are starting to open up. Like, tell us this journey, because I find this journey to be very exciting, because everybody has their own journey and how they tiptoe or just like land into it when everything just kind of starts exploding in a fun new way.
Well, I first before I went to the Akashic Records, down that journey, I started with Reiki healing because I had heard that was so good for stress levels, and I was dealing with stress levels and high blood pressure, and I was like, I don't want to go on like pills or anything like that. What can I do holistically to deal with this?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
deal with all that.
And then my red light therapy lady as well.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jen.
Yeah, and she's in the tip. Is that how you met her?
Yes. And so she during one of my sessions, she told me about her Akashic Records lady. And it was just very intriguing, her story. And so I decided to make an appointment with Stephanie. And that was, I think my first one was in July, and that was...
Wow, so this changes, Lolita, since July then.
Yeah, huge changes.
July is not that big, 6 months ago, kind of ish.
Yeah, and I was still in my other studio. I was thinking I was just going to stay there and continue what I was doing there. All these plans that I'm doing now with this warehouse that I just moved into, and all the plans that don't have to do with photography, but also supports my bigger why overall. None of that was in my head in July. None of it. I was barely like hanging on by a thread. I was competing in another pageant, Petite USA, and I was doing all this prep, and it was the hardest pageant competition that I've ever had to do. So that was the only thing that was in my head. Yeah. At the time.
So these bigger things, like you thought that was the biggest thing you were dealing with, and then you're finding out, oh no, there's something bigger.
So I did the Akashic Records, and right off the bat, in my first 2-hour reading, they were talking about how my higher purpose was to help women. To empower women. And when I thought about it more and more, and everything that I'm doing here, and everything that I naturally already do, well, shit. I'm sorry.
You can say shit. It's fine.
Well, shit. They were right. Everything that I'm doing. And then the one key thing that that stays in my head also all the time is, you're gonna take all that you do, all of your skill sets, all of it is going to come together for this one purpose.
Oh, I remember that happening because we were having lunch, and it was like, that's a big change. How can you pull everything together when, again, it looks like, oh, I'm interested in that, I'm interested in that, I'm interested in that. But what happened in that pivot where you started realizing all is one? This all flows together, it plays back and forth. Because even talking about your space here, that kind of speaks to all is one. Yeah, and it just very naturally, it's like everything just fell into my lap, and that's what my spirit guides were also saying. Yeah, we will never let you fail. You will gotta listen. Yeah, you have to listen. All of these things will just happen, and you just have to, listen and accept that this is part of it. And they said that it was all going to happen in the fall. Oh, this year? Oh my gosh. See, that's really quick. It's like, okay, I have to jump into it right now because we'll have to jump in to listen.
Well, I signed the lease here in October.
So what I'm understanding...
It's crazy.
I think about
it. Spooky and crazy, but I love it.
I know, because I remember you being overwhelmed, because it's like, I'm told this, it was almost like anxiety. How does all that work? I'm told this stuff that I haven't done yet, that I'm stepping into. I need to be listening, or I could fail. Yeah. Or do I learn how to listen?
And failing is fine too. I think they're just lessons. Life. Yeah, they're just lessons, right?
It's life. And now, so you've been listening. Can we talk about the thing about getting into this warehouse relative to another warehouse, to give an example of listening? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, yes. So in my Akashic Records, one of my Akashic Records reading, my spirit guides were telling me that the space that I was trying to get into, it's going to give me more opportunity than you haven't even thought of, right? And at the time, they said two things, that opportunities that I never even thought of, right? And I hadn't signed the lease yet. And then the other thing was also you will have another business venture that you didn't even think of from you pursuing this place. And it was very specific wording, from you pursuing this space. So this was not the space that I was looking at first. I was looking at a 2,300 square foot place,
and I'm just going to talk very plainly on like how much my rent was going to be. My rent was going to be $4,100 a month for 5 years. And then I felt like it was a risk. I knew I wanted to level up. I knew I wanted a bigger space. I knew I wanted to get away from Midtown and get into somewhere that's closer to home.
Yeah.
So that seemed like the space that it was supposed to be. I was super excited about it.
Yeah.
But as we were negotiating terms, like things got kind of like weirder. They asked for more money because they were like worried because and this happens a lot, you know, like with photographers, with creatives.
Yeah.
You know,
like all of a sudden more money to put in there.
Right. Getting into spaces because they're not trusting that a photographer is going to do very well, right?
Yeah.
In their space.
Yeah.
So,
dang.
because you know, like it's a stereotype, right? You know, damn hippies.
Because
you know?
because we can do some really good business, and people try and group you that you're just in this. Yeah, you called it a hippie.
Yeah, damn hippies. But no, like so. Part of that was also, I got all the money. I went through all the hoops. I got the $8,000 that they were looking for. Anyway, so in my search, you know, I searched a whole bunch of places. I emailed a whole bunch of like property management, something like that. This
just to double check,
this place, I thought they had ghosted me. Like I thought the real estate person was just like, oh, whatever, like we don't want you in here anyway. Cool. But the day I was supposed to put down my deposit for the other place, which I was already kind of feeling like this about, they called me that morning and they said, hey, like I just got back into town. Would you like to see it? I happen to be in town. I said, sure, when? So it turns out an hour before I was supposed to plug down that $8,000 on the other place, I saw this place and I was gobsmacked. I was like, this is everything that I needed it to be. It's 2880, so 2,900 square feet. It has 3 office spaces already.
I love it. There's so many different rooms that you can be playing in.
And it's the rent is $1,000 cheaper. So
that is incredible.
Yeah.
So that's listening and also in the divine space. And I think even searching for other locations, like you're just getting guided, like, hey, this doesn't feel right. And sometimes we'll just do stuff because we think, well, that's what I was told to do, like especially for doing the Akashic records.
I didn't tell you this, like the part that gobsmacked me too about the divine intervention part. Yeah. I really call it divine intervention because this place also, the realtor was telling me there's another lease already on for review, lease on review or whatever. They were
so you made a decision quick?
Yeah, somebody was already looking at the lease. They were going to sign another person. And so as I was driving away, I called the other office for the other place. I'm like, hey, I need till next week to make my decision. And you know, in commercial real estate, that's a thing. Okay, waiting is a thing, right? Oh. And so, but the other realtor was like, well, you need to make your decision by tomorrow, which were Thursday to Friday. So by Friday, because somebody else is interested. I went, are they? Somebody else really?
You're trying to scare me.
So so I turned around and I called the realtor for this place. I'm like, listen, this is my situation. I didn't tell you this right away.
So you're just straight up, which I love.
Like, so if I were to apply today, this after, like once you send me the application, do you think the landlord will give me a reply by tomorrow? And he goes, yes. And then he went to bat for me, and by like the morning of tomorrow, the next morning, I had my answer.
Friday morning.
Yeah, you got it. Oh, they let go the other guy. Wow. They said, forget it to the other guy.
Because they knew you were very real about what your vision, they know what your vision was. And
I mean, I told them I was a photographer, what I was going to do in here, but like I didn't tell them like my bigger why and everything that you know here too.
Oh, we have to hear this too, because this location where we're at right now, you'll see it's being put together, and sometimes rooms look like this, but every room is like this because she literally just moved in she was saying she was downtown, which was Midtown, Sacramento, and literally everything is just put here so then she can organize and figure out what she's doing. Okay, so this came into you're like, Rhonda, why'd you say that?
I'm like, it looks like a dumpster fire in here. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Where are my shelves? I need shelves.
I mean, but think about this. If we just take a moment here and think about this, the situations happen where it's overwhelming. But if you have your guidance and you really keep listening, you just all of a sudden there's a light that opens up and door that opens up where you go, wait, that's where I'm supposed to be. Not this other place. It should be easier. This person should be like, oh, I mean, if it's in alignment, it shouldn't be a fight.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that because we may be in life thinking that everything needs to be a fight before we actually get to it.
Right.
Like, I have to fight for it. I have to have pain in my body before I know that I've worked hard enough or whatever. So I think that is a really special thing.
Some of us, have been trained incorrectly, like in relationships.
I think most
or whatever.
people.
Yeah. Like,
because I used to think that my body would have to hurt every day. That's how I got on thyroid medicine, is I would just kick my ass every day and I go, good job. And then I got a diagnosis of hypothyroidism. And I go, dang, I work out every day and I eat pretty darn healthy. And and then I decided to be even more mean to my body by just saying, you can't even handle this. I thought you could. And then, as years go on, no medicine, 9 years into it, and going, oh, love. You really want to love on yourself because everything really does. We want it to be easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And meaning we get to create and enjoy, and it may not seem busy because it's kind of like in our path, but if somebody looks on the outside, they go, wow, like you're working a lot. And you're like, nah, it doesn't really feel like it, but I think you need a vacation. There's been so many things you've been doing.
Yeah, I know.
You've been traveling, you're doing all these different things.
I'm going to Tulum in about 10 days.
So. Oh, you are?
Yeah. I'm really excited about that.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I didn't think I was going to be able to take the time away, right? But
yeah, because you're right in the middle of doing all this.
Of this dumpster fire, yes.
Yeah, the dumpster fire. Can we talk about this location? Because this is where I want you to think about what is your bigger picture? What did you learn in this conversation before we got here of stuff that's in your way, stuff that maybe seem easy, and I call it low-hanging fruit, and how you can breathe in and maybe to go get your Akashic records, or maybe you already tapped in, but just keep listening to what's coming to you, because it can be handed to you if you're out there and you're keeping yourself open and really wanting to find what you're here to do and move forward.
Yeah, for me, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question the way correctly, or what you're asking for, but what comes to my head is exactly that, listening to myself. I mean, a lot of times, I shoot from my hip and I go with my gut, right? But just working on the spiritual work, and actually being told that what I'm thinking a lot is correct.
Yeah,
go that way, or just the direction, just a little bit of validation, and then on top of that, forethought, I don't know, just somebody give us a word, just a team to tell me which direction.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's your team.
Yeah,
that's your team. Yeah.
That was really pivotal for me. I'm really glad I started doing that spiritual work.
I want you to share a story. I'm going to share a story, but I want you to think about what a story you want to share, because I love storytelling. So along this journey, I've had my Akashic records read a couple times, and I didn't really ask big questions. Not really big things came out of it, but it was just hey, wait, there's such a thing as Akashic records. There's such a thing as these guides, and so that's kind of as far as I got with that. I said, she goes, well, ask any more questions. I'm like, well, what do you ask? What do you ask? Spiritually, I was working on my fence. I live on acreage, and so sometimes I get irritated if I have to do these big projects. Not anymore. I actually call it the Fresh Inspiration Ranch, so I love it. But I have this painting job I have to do on my fence, and there's these 3 parts that go together to spray the fence so it goes faster, so I'm not using my paintbrush. So I put it together, put the paint in, I'm done. It takes a couple days, and then I rinse everything out and I put everything on top of one another, but there's this little piece. And that little piece, if you lose it, then it's all gone. The thing is not even worth anything anymore. So then I lost it. I lost that one little piece. So in our shed, it's all, lifted and stacked up, and that little piece is right on top. Everything's clean. I come in and everything is moved. And I go, where is that little piece? And I'm told that I lost the little piece, and I go, well, and then, but what I could hear is, you need to learn more before you will find that little piece, but don't worry about it. Don't go out and buy another thing. It'll come to you. And I'm like, all right. Like I felt weird, like, because somebody is telling me that I've lost the piece, and I go, I don't think so. So maybe a month later, I hear this thing that I'm walking in the shed, look down. So I'm walking, there's hay from our goats. Look down. I look down on top of the hay, like, you know, like a needle in a haystack. It was right on the top.
Oh, weird.
Right in the main thoroughfare of our shed. And I was like, thank you. So I had these, like, I had my Akashic records open, but then I had these things that were literally happening I was like, who is talking to me? It's not like you can hear the voice if anybody experienced this. But it was just like I could hear that experience was reminding me that I have a team, and that happens consistently. And when I lose stuff, I go, what am I supposed to learn now? Because that's consistent. That is, and then all of a sudden something will pivot, and I go, okay, so I'm supposed to find it now. Like now I expect it, and I go, is it big enough? Did I learn what I was supposed to learn? And it's been happening consistently like that. So that's my experience with my guides. It's like, you need to know, you can't know, you're not going to find it now. You don't. But you keep moving forward, and we're going to teach you to trust that there's somebody there. So that's my thing, is the trust thing. So tell me any story that you want to share in how maybe you connect with your guides, or just that you know that you're on the right track. Do you have any story that you made that step? And we did the warehouse story, so that could be it. But I don't know, is there any like personal, emotional story about what you're learning about you and the transformation that you've been doing that has brought you more into alignment to probably be more soft, or to be more open? Because you were talking about communication and learning communication, a lot of personal things you had to grow within a short period of time. And when you learned whatever that was, maybe speaking more, or, you know, speaking your truth more, or something that you personally were like, thank you, I can feel my team. I can feel my support team.
You know what? There are a lot of personal things that we talk about in my Akashic Records readings, so I will not get into most of those. However, one thing about my...
We have some personal things, but I just divulge it all here.
One thing about my growth, for sure, as a woman, as somebody who is confident, and when I'm not confident, I, fakes it, right? And growth as a tomboy, learning how to be more feminine, and so actually it was my first session. So with your spirit guides, they generally do not tell you who they are, right? Sometimes they do, like what rare occasion they do. Well, my grandma came out. And this was a week before my pageant in Chicago, and I was telling you earlier, I was like, that was the only thing on my mind. I was stressed out about like cost and just being ready, as a contestant, being as a competitor in a pageant, knowing I was going to be in a tough situation, right? And to trust myself and trust what I've learned and things like that. So my grandmother, who used to do pageants, showed up as one of my spirit guides, and she made it very clear that she was there, and that she is so very proud of me, and that she will be there with me next week in Chicago. Paul didn't fly in until prelims night, so he was there for prelims and finals. I was there the entire week. Wow. for rehearsals and for interview and for sparkle party.
And like practicing your walk too. And like all those kinds of.
She said that she will be there with me in the next week, and that made me feel not alone.
Yeah.
Right. Paul was there, and he was very supportive every step of the way.
Yeah.
But how much can he connect and relate? Right. I had no one really.
Well, okay, so her grandma is like, we're talking spirit here. Paul is here, her husband, but your grandma was there by your side. Yeah. And she knows the industry. It's probably changed, since she was doing
a lot of it
these
is
things?
the same.
Is it really?
A lot of it is still the same. I mean, you'd like to think that pageants have evolved and changed and modernized, but there are some core principles that are very much the same.
Yeah, your grandma can support you.
Yeah.
So did you feel your grandma there too?
100%. Like in my hotel room,
Wow.
somebody to talk, somebody to just kind of talk to, whether it be out loud or in my head or whatever. I just didn't feel alone. I felt more resolved in what I was doing, and less questions in my head. Like 80% of my questions were like gone. And should I do this or that or whatever? No, I'm just.
You just knew. She just kind of gave it to you, huh?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I love that. I heard my dad the other day. It's wonderful when you have that support because they are going to be there, and there's something about that confidence later too.
Yeah.
With what you have here, then we talked about something like the emotional leveling up and the things you're learning about your spiritual journey and what brought you here. What is this place for you? Because you said this is the place that you were supposed to have. So what are you leading right now that that you're going to be putting together for, I think, next year? Is it a pageantry thing?
Oh, yeah. So I'm currently on the board for Miss Sacramento County. So I'm very active in doing that. We do hold a lot of things here. Actually, this week and next week, the contestants are coming in to do their headshots. So I'm set up for that back here. And then, but also next year, I am the new director for Elegant Elite Miss California. It's a new pageantry system. The nationals are in South Carolina. I'm state director here for California. And for a while, we finally set our date, first week of April. And
Nice.
For a long time, my team and I, we couldn't figure out where we were going to have the pageant here in Sacramento. It's the capital, okay? So we're going to do it here in the capital instead of down south where most of the pageants happen.
Oh.
So a friend of mine, Nat Q, was here, checking out the warehouse for the first time. She was like, what the hell? I'm like, oh. And then she looks at me. She goes, you're really set up really well here for a black box theater. I'm like, and I looked at her. I'm like, you're right. I am. And she goes, uh-huh. And she turns around and she points at my storage room with the weird window in it. She goes, in fact, they have a box office.
Wow.
And my brain exploded.
Yeah.
Because that brought me back to rewind back to the Akashic Records reading where my guys were saying there are other business ventures that you didn't even think of. That was one, and I knew that's what they were talking about at that point.
Wow. Well, even the thing about the podcast room.
Oh yeah.
You're not even going to be running your own podcast. I'll work with Lolita on that one though, because she's fun. Mm-hmm. But that could be, you can rent that out for people and
yeah. So I do have an extra room here that we are going to make our masculine room with leather and black walls and neon and stuff, and that's going to be our podcast.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
That we rent out. Yeah.
Yes, but I can see how this all comes together from the photography, because I find that as a woman, it is challenging being in front of the camera, taking pictures, and going, wow, that's an awesome picture. Instead, it's like, well, I want to change this, I want to change that. So you're learning, you're helping people learn how to be loving on themselves more.
I mean, a lot of times people come in here and they want to change really, really small things, things that don't matter. I once had a girl, it was very small, asked me, hey, so my fold of my eye here is kind of weird. Can you just push it down so it matches the other? And I'm like, really? I mean, yes, I will, but she was focused on the wrong things, right? I mean, when I come in here, I make it very clear that, what I'm looking for as a photographer and what people are looking for when they're looking at your headshot is your facial expression. What do they get from
your essence?
It's are you a mean person, or what are you inside? Do you look happy?
Yeah. Do people lean in and
do you look pleasant in your personality? No one gives a shit about
no bitch resting face kind of thing.
Well, I mean, bitch resting face. I mean, is
that popular?
No.
Stoic?
No, I mean, well, actually, it depends. It actually really depends with if you're what you're going for. If you come in saying I'm a lawyer and I need to look very stern, I need to look mean. Resting bitch face comes really, really well. But other times, okay, so what do you need this headshot for?
Yeah.
You know, and emotion is what I would like for people to learn coming out of this versus, hey, can you like fix this? You know, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's not what people are looking at when they look at your headshot.
Right.
At all. Even in pageantry.
Well,
Even in pageantry. In beauty pageants, they want to look to see, one, if you're photogenic, I mean, yes. But then two, if you're pleasant.
Yeah.
If you're pleasant and you're friendly. Like right off the bat.
You want women to be loving on other women. That's
right.
When you're wreaking havoc all over the place, doesn't help anything.
Right.
Okay, so you have your photography, now you have this location, but you're also leading, I want to call it the pageantry again. That's right?
Yeah.
Like you're a director.
Yeah.
And so all of that together, that's your big why. It's like you get to work with people that are all different levels and helping people feel like I feel like when I got pictures done, and my kids too, that it leveled them up.
Oh, yeah.
Because for Jacob, my son was doing skateboarding, and at a certain point, boys that are in their 20s, none of them very much do the skateboarding still and do the tricks that he was doing. So he has like this time capsule, and then with Kiki just being this relaxed, stoic, getting ready to transition from high school to now she's in college. But I mean, those pictures meant something to her. But I feel like pictures level you up.
Yeah.
I can't see how it can't if you have a good photographer. That's really important. All right, so I love this. And so Lolita, thank you for allowing us to interview you.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
I love it.
Yeah, don't let this be the last time because that was fun.
Yay! I know she talks on this is good. We need people like that because when I say hashtag speaker locking arms, it is that we're learning to use our vocals, especially if you get confronted with somebody not being very nice, that you really just say, hey, that's not okay. And you make your atmosphere more safe. And that's where I think where the stop of the blaming and the shaming really come from. And I don't believe we can change the whole world, but I know that if you're watching this, that it's part of that. It's that you're interested in leveling up. So keep close with Fresh Talks Global Vision. Lolita Vasquez, make sure that you're keeping up with her. I'll put information so you can connect with her. And this is about what do you want to do in your life and what kind of information do you get from here? I'd love for you to add a comment. If you're getting this in email, click reply, but we're out there all over the place. Appreciate you, love you, and you have an insightful day. Namaste.